6 episodes deep now.
I'm committed. This is like 15 years of marriage.
Why would you come seek therapy from me, the
Why would you? What?
therapist?
I'm pulling that out of my rear end. Bird through like a plane's turbine, you know?
What is the game here?
It's the show with hot questions and even hotter wings.
Gotta get the facts before you confront him.
Technobabble that means absolutely nothing. Yes.
Ah, ah, ah.
Hello and welcome to Road Goes Ever On and On. Today, Mark and I are talking about the 6th episode of Apple TV's series Dark Matter. So spoilers are ahead. And if you're enjoying the content, then feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you don't want to miss a single one of our discussions, then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications. And with that, let's chat about Jason 2. What are your thoughts on this guy?
Well, with the information you gave us last week about, most of his perspective is not in the book. It is a very...
I want to see where you're going with this, because I have something that's related to that same thing. Continue.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, I think that this was an episode that felt very heavy with Jason 2 exposition. So... for something that wasn't in the book, I think that we got a lot of what Jason 2 is going through, his feelings about, messing up with Charlie, which I did think that was a nice little setup in the previous episode where he said he couldn't eat the peanut M&Ms because Charlie's allergic.
Right.
That Jason is very aware of the allergy, and Jason 2 is...
yeah, it just instantly, as soon as he heard describe that, he's like, nope. That's definitely not an option.
Right. And so for, Jason 2 to, start failing and slipping through the cracks of, his knowledge of this family, I thought that was a nice little way for Daniela to start catching on.
Yeah, I thought that was a great way for, Daniela to be able to catch on. It's one of those things that instantly, unlike some of the other kind of odd things, that just doesn't make sense in your world. That being said, what I thought was interesting about this being added material, I haven't read the book, so I can't say this for certain. I would argue, knowing that it didn't really show this perspective in the book, that the show is worse for it. And my reason, and I could be very biased, it could be because I dislike Jason 2 so much, and I dislike the scenes he is in so much, because I don't understand how he can continue to make these dumb and pig-headed decisions. He almost kills his kid, and he casually says to the therapist, I can make it up to him. And I, based off the way he's reacted in the past, I assume it's going to be he's going to buy him something.
Well, money fixes all the problems.
I think if I didn't see his perspective, if I'm reading the book and I'm just wondering, why the heck did he do this? And I'm running through things in my imagination, I can suspend disbelief about, what kind of dumb decisions he would do, because I don't know it for a fact. Maybe he does have kind of a good decision. But to me, I don't know. Last week I said, I think he's a psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's just dumb. I don't know. I don't like him, and watching him destroy this family is not building tension for me. It's just unenjoyable.
So you think it would be better almost if, say, Jason switches Jason, puts him in the other world, and if we just maybe focused on that Jason and Amanda and their adventures, and then getting to the big, reveal of, the evil Jason would be better for you than seeing all these dumb decisions that don't really make sense?
I think so. I mean, it's giving you an interesting perspective of this idea of maybe it's that kind of like that be careful of what you wish for, from the R.L. Stein books and stuff like that, where
it gives
where
me
it turns out
it gives me really Monkey Paws vibe. He got he got what he wanted. He's like, I wish that I could have had the right decision with Daniela. And then Monkey's Paw, he's like, actually, you know what? Maybe this wasn't what I wanted.
Right. which to me that's kind of a different story from Jason 1's story. And yes, like the the reason that Jason 1's story starts is because this Jason 2 is selfish and wants to travel the road not taken. So that can still be the impetus of it, but this whole thing of like be careful of what you wish for and it may not be what you thought it was, to me it feels like a very different story from Jason 1's story of a man torn from his home trying desperately to get back from it in impossible situations and impossible odds and the crazy things he has to deal with. You know, like that's, and I can see how the seeing the two sides of the coin, they can kind of contrast each other and therefore kind of give you a little bit more insight into how different Jason 1 is from this one kind of decision. But for me, it just like it muddies the story, and I don't like him. And the more screen time we get with him, the less enjoyable the show is. And I feel like this was the wrong choice of putting him in.
I also agree with you because in they touch on it a little bit, kind of what you touched on last week with the ship of Theseus of like who you are, and like
Yes.
your experiences and everything. They like form who you are and what you do, and so like at some point, Jason 1 was empathetic and realized that he wanted to start a family, and this other Jason is not empathetic and he is impulsive, showing that they are two different people. Yeah, they might have the same
Yes.
genetic makeup, they might look exactly the same, but they have two different wants, two different needs, and with Jason 2 and this family, and now that we've seen him going to therapy with Amanda 1, we kind of see that he's not happy. He is miserable in this life that because it's not what he wants. Like he is kind of a terrible person, and being a family man where he has to like make sacrifices for his family, it doesn't register to him. It's not Jason 1, it's Jason 2.
Right. So I wonder if in those scenes with the therapist, if he might have had a little bit of character growth, because it seemed like he was saying early on in therapy, this isn't what I wanted. I'm over it. I want out. But then Amanda says something that kind of clicks with him, about like he's like she says something about, the corridor being his fear of commitment. And he's like, I'm committed. This is like 15 years of marriage. And she's like, you don't talk like that, And that potentially struck a chord because he 100% went from like, I want out to boxing myself into this world. And not only can he not come in, but I can't go out now. Like that's a two-way putting himself in this. And it almost seemed like character growth until he then was like, I'm going to kill Ryan by stranding him in a world where him doesn't really exist, and he doesn't have money, and he doesn't have...
Yeah, I mean, he did want... It seemed like he wanted to seal up the box even before talking with Amanda, and I think that that's his way of just like...
That's when things were going better.
When
he originally wanted to seal up the box, that was when he thought he had his perfect world.
Right.
But now he's going to therapy because it's not perfect.
Well, I think he's going to therapy because, like, I almost think that this Jason wants to have his cake and eat it too, where he is like, I want to be married with Daniela, but now I kind of want to mess around with Amanda because that was fun too in my world.
Right.
So it feels like his therapy is not necessarily self-growth. Like he like wants to actually work on himself. Like, yeah, he is talking to her and, explaining things that he's frustrated with in his life. But I feel like it is like this intent of being like, well, I'm not really happy with Daniela. It's kind of great. And like he even said, like, you're not who I thought you were.
Right. Yeah.
Which that's, for Daniela, being married for 15 years with what she thinks is her Jason and hearing, I guess you're not who I thought you were. That's a big, stab to the ego.
Yes. Now, there were a few things related with him that to me didn't make sense. So one is we see Daniela tailing him.
Mm-hmm.
Which, seeing this scene kind of made me wonder, how does he not see or hear her, especially when they're in the storage
Mm-hmm.
facility, and it's a bunch of corridors that just like echo sounds, and he doesn't hear somebody kind of walking behind her or behind him. Also, this facility really needs to change its doors. Like the fact that people can
Lift him up that
get
high.
in, lift them up that high. Like if you get one of those like old people grabber arms,
Oh yeah.
or even one of those like toy shark arms that you give kids, like you can get some stuff out of people's
Oh yeah.
boxes.
That I was thinking that. Also, what was the motivation for Jason to go there?
I don't know.
So that was my biggest complaint with that
I
scene. He's just like, all right, I'm going to the storage unit to like get something, drop something off. Like nothing. There's literally no reason for him to go to that storage unit for a minute.
I have no. I mean, maybe that's like his. Maybe that's his crap. What's a Superman's place?
Fortress of Solitude.
Yes, maybe that's his fortress of solitude. You know, like a place where he can be himself without being, without being judged for not being this world's Jason. I'm pulling that out of my rear end. But like seeing how poorly this tailing made sense to me made me think about something I didn't really think about before, which is how long this Jason had been tailing the other Jason, and how nobody else saw this and thought it was really weird. Like there wasn't somebody in the neighborhood that at some point saw a Jason in the bushes staring into a window where there's another visible Jason, or just somebody in the neighborhood that's nosy, that's like, hey, what you doing behind that tree? If he's tailing him for at least weeks to be able to see all this stuff, how is nobody commenting on this creeper? How does he get away with this? How do
I
you
mean,
tail somebody for that long without getting noticed?
well, I feel like there are ways you can tail people. Like if you are an experienced
If you're
stalker.
yes,
But as somebody that's just a
but
scientist, I don't know how he's.
yes,
Yeah, I.
that's my issue. Like he's not. This isn't something he's been doing, since he was a kid or done. It just
Yeah, and I feel like somebody may have, if he's, in the local neighborhood following that Jason, somebody that, like, we saw Jason and Daniela run into that one girl. Like, how has nobody ran into this Jason and been like, hey, it's me, and then, like, have a completely off-putting interaction where you're like, why
Yep.
did Jason not recognize who I was? Like, would Jason not know who I am?
Yeah. So I seeing this scene, putting tailing in there twice, just made me think about it, and then made me think about the original tailing, and then it was just like, what? How?
Right.
Also, at his storage facility, why did he have ampules on the ground? He seemed like a well organized, like clean, meticulous guy, and he's just got his ampules just like sitting on the ground. But and he's thought things out so well. Like the scene where he talks in, I think, the last episode with Leighton about how you can't just steal money from another world and bring it in because whatever serial numbers. He seems like he really thinks things out. So
Which I kind of have a gripe about this money thing. Real
okay.
quick. So I know we'll get back to Amanda and Jason 1 and their trips through the box. But now we
Yes.
see them actually spending money. Like getting hotel
Yes.
rooms and getting...
Oh, Jason 1 and
Jason...
Amanda 2.
Right, they're like buying food.
Yeah.
So either you're using cash that they brought with you, but it seems like you'd be using a lot of cash. And most hotels you
Right.
need like a credit card deposit, ID. Like none of this is getting flagged. Like you scan an ID and like are all these cards being able to like work from, reality to reality? Like you would think that they would have individual magnetic codes and something would be
Right,
flagged.
they're not in one of those like seedy motels that doesn't do that stuff.
Yeah. We see them feasting on a
Specifically to
big
protect
dinner.
people. Yes.
And there's no consequences to them doing this. There's a couple things that don't make sense with the money situation, but
So Jason 2, he's supposed to be smart and well reasoned. The whole thing with getting rid of Ryan, Jason is the last person seen with Ryan, and Jason has Ryan's phone, which probably has GPS tracking on. So it could be he'll be interviewed by the cops for Ryan's disappearance, and the location sharing can go back to this, warehouse where Jason has also been. And also, I think Jason was probably the last person seen with Layton,
Yeah.
who at some point one of his relatives is going to call him in as missing. And hey, whoa, isn't this interesting? There's a huge transfer from Layton's account. Whose account did it go to? Like,
Oh yeah. Yeah, there is a lot of what is the game here? Because yeah, he was the last one to be seen with these guys. They're gone now. Missing persons. Like if this I feel like for someone so meticulous, this is a big misstep.
so meticulous. I just don't get him. He is, for a smart person, he is so dumb, and it just frustrates me the more he's in there. I like Jason 1, he's got his weaknesses, but they're more human weaknesses. Like he well, let's talk about Jason 1
All right,
and
let's
Amanda
go
2.
to Jason 1 and Amanda 2.
Jason 1 is a human. He's not perfect. He loves his wife, but he's going through such a terrible thing that he has that moment where he at first accidentally touches Amanda 2, pulling her in his sleep. Like, hey, that was subconscious. Or his sleep, like he can't control that. But even when he wakes up and realizes it, he starts to pull back, but then he does stroke her, and I buy it. Like that's like trauma bonding. They're both going through the same terrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
They also don't know if they're ever going to get back to their, like, I get that. The things that he does wrong to me are very human things. They're not, even when they're, mistakes from like somebody that's reasonable looking back from like a distance, you can see how somebody that's in that position in that moment dealing with that situation that would make that, instead of like the, pulled back, cool, calm, reserved kind of way of doing it. So very different, the two of them. I do like this Jason.
I do too. You're right. Like this might be the only person he could ever confide, like that understands what he's going through. Amanda too. She's the only person that understands it. She might be the only person that will ever understand it. They might be trapped together forever, whatever their last place they go to. And it makes sense that like we don't know how long they've been going through this. We know it's been multiple days. It's not like this is, one day they're traveling through all these worlds. So very well at any moment, like they could be stuck forever. They could die in this, like they've seen really messed up worlds. And so this is one person that has been riding this roller coaster with you. And I think it would make sense for Jason to do that. Now, they had separate beds from the beginning, so why was she there in the first place? If you're trying to be good...
They stumbled home drunk from that bar.
That's fair.
And probably just like they were probably sitting and talking in the bed and then
fell asleep,
passed out. Like it wasn't their intention, is my guess.
And honestly, that
something.
Was the first moment that they had fun and had let go, and like since this whole ordeal has been going on, I empathize with that whole situation.
Exactly. Funny enough, you know what the trauma bonding reminds me of? You watched Hot Ones, or have seen some Hot Ones, right?
Yes. Hot Ones.
It's the show with hot questions and even hotter wings. I love it, and I think that you can see the same thing there, where the guests go through a traumatic experience with the host, and the interesting thing is, just like real kind of trauma situations, it can drive people very close together, and you see celebrities that normally don't give a crap about who is interviewing them that like legitimately hug this person and treat them like their best friends.
I just
You know,
saw the recent one with Chris Hemsworth, and as he's
yes.
going through it, he's like, "I love you, man," and he's like, "I love you too, brother."
When I saw in Sync go through that, Justin Timberlake had already been on the show, and Justin Timberlake, the way he was talking with Sean, it seemed like that they were like best friends. Like he's like, I've already been through this together. Like you and I are tight. You know, like we're. It's interesting how that can do that. It also sometimes has like the exact opposite effect, and people, will it's a stressful situation, and so it's easy to lash out at anything you dislike about somebody, and so like sometimes people will treat him as the antagonist, like this is all your fault, so it's interesting how that can go either way. They showed obviously like the positive way, and it even reminded me of, I think Mr. Beast has recently been doing some of this stuff where he puts like two people in an isolated situation for a long period of time. There was one where like two people were inside of, like a white room where there's like no kind of inputs, and it was a very tough situation, and they very much had issues with each other. And then I think his most recent video, he had two people in the stranded in the wilderness. Every day they're, they stay out there together. They get 10,000, and the two of them went in there as strangers and left as absolute best friends, and it's wild seeing that form through those really tough interactions. So it just, I did kind of like that portrayal. I forgive Jason for what he's doing because he's human, and I can
Yeah.
see what he's struggling with. I like this Jason.
I do like this Jason a lot more. I liked how it has been. It seems like the episodes have been very similar from like after we got the whole switcheroo. Once we started traveling in the box, it's really been, is this my world? Is this not my world? Is this, as Jason 2, he's going with Daniela. It's like, what thing can I mess up this time? Like, how can I make myself obvious that I'm not the correct Jason? And it's been very formulaic in like the episode structures of what we've been seeing. So I am excited that now it seems we are getting a little bit higher stakes for Jason 1, where
Yes.
now there is the box that he wants to go to is completely sealed off. There's 5 attempts left,
Right.
and Amanda puts it so poetically, you are looking for a grain of sand in an infinite beach.
Right.
Like that is like you got 5 more tries to find that sand, and it is every time has been off. Like you're not even closer.
And it's interesting because she's not pointing that out to make him feel hopeless, but instead, make him realize that his strategy is wrong. And I think this goes back to a question that she asked in the restaurant scene, and also something that you've referenced earlier, that kind of like ship of Theseus, like who are we, what makes us. Jason is making the mistake of writing down traits, physical things he remembers about this world. But I think that kind of gets to that thing of like the ship of Theseus, of like what makes something what it is, if we have all the same pieces from that ship and we build a new ship with it, is that it? Or is it this other one that has been replaced bit by bit? Like what makes it? And he's focusing very much on the wrong stuff, which is just a bunch of physical things he remembers. Whereas I think that she's getting to, you need to think about, I don't know if it's like a memory, a feeling, like something that is unique, not just a bunch of physical traits, but like really drill down to what makes it his world, and probably more specifically like what makes it his Daniela.
Which I do think he is, because I think his strategy is wrong, and he is close, because we saw him, when he's in the rain, watching the very happy Daniela and the very happy Jason, whatever number he is, as they're dancing,
Right.
and it looked very much like his Daniela. Like, she had the short black hair. He basically made it to a reality where they made it together, they worked together, but it still wasn't his reality because there was already a Jason there. So maybe like the one difference is like they have a cat or they have a dog that we never met, or they they didn't have kids, and so it's like he is close, but like getting that exact version.
I don't think he's close because with infinities, there is like if you the amount of like whole numbers,
Mhm.
is infinite. And so it seems like if you're trying to get to, let's say, 50, and you like keep going through numbers and you get to like 48, it's like I'm close. There's an infinite number of points in between that. Like infinity doesn't just stretch in one direction. Like you can the more you zoom in one specific space, there's still infinity there. So if he keeps going the way he's doing it, of just like, all these traits, he's going to get really close, but we're going to get to that point of infinity of like there's an infinite amount of worlds that are almost exactly his world.
Yeah.
With like the tiniest difference.
Right.
Like the tiniest difference. Literally one of the differences could be like the placement of a grain of sand. Like
Yeah.
it's that's how.
But
So I
that's got to
kind of feel
be.
like he's going at it the wrong way, and
Mhm.
Amanda's potentially pointing him in like we got to do it a different way.
Yeah. And that's got to be hard, because if he is going to these worlds that are just a grain of sand off, it's like he almost sees what his world could be, but there's already a loving Jason in that world. And so that's probably even harder to be like, well, I can't be like Jason 2 and just take this Jason out of his world and just fit back in here. And I don't even think he wants that, because he wouldn't feel like that's his Daniela anyway.
100%. Something kind of interesting here is I feel like this show, I don't know if the book does a better job of it. I feel like it tiptoes on some interesting philosophical and psychological topics. But for me, because I do like to kind of nerd out, it it never goes in deep. In this episode, she did ask the question of like, who are we? What makes us? And she says a few things, and then they're done with it. And I think that's an interesting topic. I wish they would spend a little bit more time on these. I think the last episode was kind of like a psychological episode, but once again, they just didn't quite spend enough time on it. I feel like they're focused more on the. It's not even action, maybe the thriller aspects.
I don't really feel like this show feels like a thriller to me. It has seemed a little repetitive. Like, we're 6 episodes deep now, right? We've seen six episodes.
Yeah, there's only 3 left. We're almost done with the season.
And these 6 episodes with Jason 2 have felt like, oh, I'm going to do something that's out of character, and I messed something up, and is Daniela going to catch me, and what's going to happen? And, Jason 1, it's like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. This isn't where I'm supposed to be. This isn't where I'm supposed to be. This isn't where I'm supposed to be. So it's like, it has seemed for 6 episodes, like, with a full multiverse of options of things that could happen, not a lot's happened.
Right.
Jason 2 has lost Daniela a couple times. Either, Amanda puts it together perfectly that he saw her get killed, he saw her die of a horrible disease. Like, it's pretty repetitive in that sense, and there's not, like, much to it. There's not a lot of meat on these bones.
Yeah, I see that. I think that segues us well into kind of general nitpickery.
Nitpick, nitpick, nitpick.
Nitpick. So, and I have a few different kinds.
Okay.
And you're welcome to, they don't have to stay organized. But some of them are from kind of like a screenwriting perspective where they don't make sense to me. I don't understand why they're there, or I disagree with their purpose. And then some of them are like related to like the logic of this world. where the logic doesn't make sense or it seems inconsistent to me. So Blair and Daniela,
Okay.
they're seen together.
Yeah.
I didn't like the list of things that she listed as being different with Jason, because to me it just allowed Blair to interrupt and say a punchline of, oh, so he's hotter, cleaner, and richer, where I don't feel like those are the things that Daniela would be focusing on, is where he leaves his keys and that he's constantly having sex and or wanting sex and something else. I feel like she'd be focusing on he wasn't at the tree thing that they do every year.
Right. He bought a
You know,
car without
emotional thing. Bought a car without exactly
without consulting me, or
yes,
quit his job without consulting me.
yes. So to me that was manufactured. You know, like they had her say these combination of words so Blair could react in this kind of like funny manufactured way of, you know, what's wrong with your husband being hotter, cleaner, richer?
Yeah. And like especially with the part where she's talking about the drug marks that she noticed, you think that would be like the first thing you say by like, "Hey, best friend Blair,
Yes.
I'm kind of worried about my husband. He's got like drug marks on his arm. Like I don't know what's going on and he's been really different, really weird, like it's freaking me out."
Yep.
Honestly, they didn't even feel like friends in that conversation. Like the way that the dialogue was going back and forth, and she brings up the drug usage and she was like, "You buried the lead on that one." And it just, the whole dialogue didn't seem real. Like it seemed like it was written dialogue. Like this is what people should say.
Yes. Yes. I didn't even think about the fact that that is the worst response to hearing that about your best friend's husband. Instead of being like, you told me things in the wrong order, being like, oh my God, are you okay?
Yeah, is everything all
Are you
right?
sure that's what you saw? Like, yes, that is the worst response. Victim blaming her. It's,
Yeah.
you didn't get the response you wanted from me because you didn't tell the story the right way.
Plus, not great advice. Not great advice to give her. She's like, maybe I should talk to him about it, like, and see what's going on. She's like, no.
No,
Stalk
don't talk
him.
to him.
You gotta follow
Stalk
him.
him.
You gotta make sure you know
Yeah.
what's going on. You gotta get the facts before you confront him. Like, it
Yeah.
just, I don't know. It didn't seem like a real friendship conversation.
Yes. Because also, okay, so I do get it. If something, I don't know, you stalk somebody and you confront them with it, like there's no, things can only escalate because, and I know that if the person was doing something like sneaking around behind your back, so they're breaking your trust, cheating on you, whatever, it's not good for the relationship. Also, what you're doing is also breaking the trust. I know that you're doing it because you're worried about you being hurt, but that generally like escalates the person because now the person has something to be like, why are you following?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
not great advice.
if you don't find anything, right? Like if he is completely innocent,
Now you're the bad person.
you are the
Yes.
bad person, and that breaks the
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, the bar slash restaurant slash dance hall.
Okay.
This is going to be a minor gripe that you'll probably tell me that I'm wrong on this because these places probably do exist. I don't quite know these places. Like the sit down area looked like a nice sit down restaurant. Like I've seen like bar and dance. I've seen the proximity of everything seemed a little odd and manufactured. This is minor gripe, and this is also like I don't visit that type of scene, so it probably does exist. It's probably just not my cup of tea. The bigger thing, the real gripe, because that's just like I don't go to dance places, so I don't even know if this exists. Whatever. Okay, I'm lame. The bigger thing was I hated how manufactured this scene was. They went from the place being quiet enough that you could have a normal conversation between each other, and it zoomed out so you can see, like the bar over here, all these tables. It's a pretty place. They're far apart from each other. A song is playing, and rather than being like over the course of the conversation with like different songs playing at different points, literally over the course of one song, all of a sudden, and it's not even like a super dancey song, all of a sudden it gets so loud and you see all the people, all of a sudden it goes from, you can have a conversation to there's people dancing all around them, and it's so loud that they have to like lean in super close and talk to each other. Like, I get what they were going for, of like they were originally like they weren't trying to have this like close conversation, but because of the venue they went to, it's loud, they have to get close, they're drinking, so they're inebriated, so now like they're close, it leads to dancing leads to like the hotel. Like, I get what they were going for. They did that whole transition within one song,
Yeah.
and it felt manufactured.
Yeah, it felt really fake to me, just in general, just because it did seem like I think you are right about it doesn't seem like there is a lot of like fine dining places that have like a dance floor right next to you and have it loud. It just seemed like you could have just had a similar scene where they're eating at a bar. They're just having food at the bar. Yeah, there are some things that don't make sense. I don't understand why Amanda is looking for every Amanda in this world. That doesn't really quite click with me,
Yeah.
Like she leaves.
You just said a trigger word, but we'll get to that.
Okay. Yeah, we just like she's like, "Oh, I found the Amanda. She's a White Castle owner. Oh, I see this Amanda who's happy." It's like, why are you looking for Amandas? Like, if you find one where the Amanda leaves, are you just gonna ditch this Jason? It doesn't seem like you would at this point. So, like, what is
her end game, right? And Blair basically pointed that out to her, of you've got to take care of you, because you are not just homeless, you are worldless. And
Yeah.
but at the same time, it feels more like she's helping Jason than she's really worried about herself, which could very much screw her over with only 5 jumps left.
Right? Like, we're only focusing on getting Jason to his world. We're not worried about Amanda getting to her world.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a nitpick of
Yes.
of the way a whole scene played out.
Okay. Yes.
We see they go to a world, Jason and Amanda. She says, I have to go do my own thing. He runs into blonde Danielle.
Yes. Yes.
They go back to the box, and he's like, it's not my world. Then from there, they go get a hotel.
Okay.
He is upset. This is when she's kind of saying, like, we're not doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I have to go for a few minutes, or like I have to be gone. He leaves.
Yes.
Amanda starts writing something down on not the field journal, just hotel stuff.
But the Marriott notepad.
It then cuts to a scene where Jason is looking at Daniela and Jason, and he's sat in the rain. Yeah. And then he talks about that he's been following them for like a couple of days, and has the realization of what the other Jason went through with him.
Right. Yeah.
But then but the way it happened was like he left. He was standing in the rain. He came right back to the hotel. It seems like it was still night. Like it wasn't like another day. She's already calling somewhere looking for Jason Dessen, which kind of gives the game away of what they're doing. And then she's upset because she thought he left her. But like the way that the whole scene was structured, like going from the hotel room, then him looking at them sadly, even though I thought he was in the world with blonde Daniela, like none of it connected, none of it made sense, none of it, like the motivations of Amanda or Jason in that sequence seemed right. It just seemed like it was all kind of out of place, and it was really bothersome.
Yeah, I can see that. There is the vague possibility that it's related to something that just confused the shit out of me.
Oh yeah?
So and maybe this is just like you and I came to an understanding about what the click meant, and we misunderstood it. I don't know. This is one of my nitpicks, and maybe we just didn't understand the ramifications of it. I think we heard the click sound twice, and one of the times transitioned us from one scene with Jason 1 and Amber 2 to another scene with Jason 1 and Amber too.
It did?
Amanda. Sorry, Amanda, not
Amanda,
Amber.
yeah.
Yes.
Huh.
I really, so I don't know if that means that we are actually watching multiple worlds of Jason's trying to get back to their Danielas. Maybe. I don't know. But what I think it means is that they just went from using it as a device to let you know that we're switching between worlds to make sure that you're not confused to now something that's confusing me because we're switching worlds without using it and then we're not switching worlds and using it, and so like what I don't like this sound effect. It bugs me.
I agree. I do feel like this episode specifically, so like before it did feel like they were switching Jasons, and so you knew which one was which. But
Right.
now
Yeah,
it
yeah.
seems like the click only comes like after there's like this big tension buildup. Where it was like, it's a
Yes.
scene full of tension, and it's like,
Yes.
ah.
Tension build up, tension release. Yes.
Yeah.
That's yes. So it feels very much like they, and obviously it doesn't have to be a rule. Nobody like outright stated, "Hey, this means this." But it to me it was an implied rule because of the circumstances they used it in. So to suddenly switch how they're using it makes it feel like it literally confuses me. Like I don't know if there is a bigger implication, like are there more Jasons we're watching? Have we been following more than just two Jasons? I doubt it. I really doubt it. I think we're following two Jasons, and I think they used it in a way that made us think that the click means one thing, and now they're just like, hey, this sound effect would be really fun to like cut tension, and now they're using it for that, and that to me is it's a bad choice. It is a bad choice.
I think so. It doesn't work. It like the implied rule, whether it was implied or not, they set the rule. Like they said, like every time you hear the click, we're going to different Jasons. Like they set
Yep.
that rule. Like they don't have to come
Yep.
out and say it. But when you're 6 episodes deep and you're going to the same Jason after the click, it just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. And like I said in the last episode, when they like specifically and purposely kept bouncing between Jason 1 going up to the house and Jason 2 in the house with Daniela, and they didn't do the click to make you think, oh, they're gonna, they're about to connect. Like, is there gonna be a fight? What's gonna happen? They specifically used the fact that we were used to that click and removed it to, like, screw with our trust. Like to abuse a rule they created, and now they're just like, so they created a rule and then they abused the rule, and now they're just like using the rule for something else, and it's just causing for me confusion.
It's Pavlov's bell, but way,
Yes.
way worse. Way worse.
Yes, exactly. It's like even if they didn't intend to do that, they created an association, and by using it a different way, it's just fucking with their audience. Okay, so when Jason 2 is going to therapy
Mm-hmm.
with Amanda, it bounces between that and another scene, so we see like chunks of that, and one of the chunks we saw to me was just 100% unnecessary, and I didn't like it. And it was so short, it didn't advance the plot forward. So, session is done. Jason 2 is on his way out, and Amanda 1 is like, "Oh, by the way,
How do you know who?
how'd you hear about me?" And there was something about her face and the music that created this like tension. It's almost like maybe she has deja vu, which we definitely haven't seen. They haven't talked about that in this world, so it shouldn't like in the rules, so it shouldn't exist. Like she seemed a little bit more than just like passing curiosity. She seemed like she like really wanted to know, and then he, because he's an asshole, has his like cryptic response, from an ex-girlfriend. It's a long story, which is like technically true, but he's basically saying like, I learned it from you from another world. You used to be my girlfriend, but I broke up with you by leaving without saying anything to you. But he's an asshole. In reality, this interaction should have been she asks very casually, not with like an intensity, but it's like she wants to know where he heard about her from because she needs to know like where to spend her money. And if people are coming in through like Yelp, then maybe she can put some ads on Yelp and she will get even more business. So like that's why she's asking him, like, "Oh, by the way, where did you hear about me from?" And then she can like note that down and know where where she's getting the best bang from her buck, And it's a very casual thing. He could still be an asshole in his response. I feel like the most logical response would just be Google, instead of
Mm-hmm.
saying something like that. Like, what's the point? It
Yeah.
feels like that's for the audience, not.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
entire scene was just that, and it's like it didn't move the plot forward. It just, to me, it made him more of an asshole. It made me wonder, like, because these worlds are adjacent, like, is there deja vu? I don't know. It's just confusing me more, and also pointless.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't a fan of that either. Just why it was just not necessary, you know?
It was not necessary.
Like, and yeah, with her, it like the way she asked it, it's like she had an inkling of some sort, and it's like, why?
She's like, "Where do I know you from?"
Yeah, how? Oh, you're so familiar. Why do I know you?
Mm.
Why would you? Why would you come seek therapy from me, the
Why would you?
therapist?
Right.
Why would you come here?
Why?
You are a perfectly fine man. Why would you come see me? Makes no sense.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
It
oh,
just.
an ex-girl, and that's really gonna make her think more. Like, an ex-girlfriend. Like, did I work with his ex-girlfriend? Is there a conflict of interest here now? Like, should I
It's.
not be seeing Jason too? I don't know.
It's yeah. It's weird. So that actually brings me to like the more kind of like logical nitpicks I have. Although I think the click kind of fit under that kind of like logical aspect. I've got a million questions about the box now that Jason 2 explained it a smidge more of like the corridor is, well, first of all, they did like more techno babble, it's a 5D whatever,
Superposition.
in super, it's just like techno babble that means absolutely nothing, using words that don't mean what they are saying, but it sounds smart, whatever. Behind each of these doors is like a reality where the box is in the same place. So when you create the box, when does the box appear in a world where it doesn't exist?
This has been one of my biggest questions.
So like, does it appear when does it not appear until you like open a door for a reality, or as soon as you go in the corridor, does it just appear in all of those worlds at that place? Does it disappear? Like if you go into the corridor and it appears in all the worlds and you don't go into one of the doors and then like your time is up, does it like disappear from the worlds? We've seen situations where we should have two boxes and they seem to occupy the same space because like two Blairs came out of the same box. So that's clearly from different worlds. Also, it looked like a facility where they had built the box, so they're like there should be like three worlds boxes in that one space.
Because there was the initial box, and then,
It looked like they were in a facility where they built the box.
well,
Then like
I
Wasp Blair comes out with the wasps,
right.
and because she went in the box went there, and then Blair 2, or maybe another, who the fuck knows, Blair 2 is now living in that world, so she went in there. So it's like there have been three boxes. But if the worlds are infinite, there's definitely a world where the warehouse is over like 6 feet or so, and so the box is in a different position, and so like how do they like shift? Do they combine and there's now like a bigger box? Does one replace the other one?
I can answer one of your questions.
Okay.
And there's only one way I can answer one of your questions.
Okay.
The box appears when they open it. Open the door.
Okay.
One way I can explain this, we
Okay.
saw when they opened the door in the water world. They were on top of the water. The water comes rushing in. The box sinks. So to me,
Right.
we know that the box appears right when they open the door. Now, your other question, maybe. So,
Unless there's a bunch of other boxes that have sunk, because they also appeared there, but then started sinking.
right, like if they go back to that
So if
world,
there's
does it
just-
like?
yeah,
Can you just
like a
stack infinite?
underwater pyramid of like boxes.
But so the other one is okay. So we know, Blair has come in and out of those ones.
Yeah, yeah.
We did see the one where Amanda was killed as well. Another place where the box
Yes.
was.
Yep. Yeah.
All in Velocity Labs, I would
Yes.
say. So it seems
Yeah.
like if Velocity Labs is built, there is a box that's always going to be built in that same location. Now, could they move it over?
But there's a reality where like that building is just like there was an issue with like plumbing, and so when they built that building, it like they had to build it 6 feet over, and so everything is just shifted a little bit.
So in that case, I do think that there could be multiple boxes. So it's like if your
What,
box is in the location where it would be perfect.
Yeah.
But if it's 6 feet apart, new box shows up. Here's
no,
the other box.
not apart. I'm saying like slightly overlapping. That's more than
Oh.
like 6 feet wide, I think.
Okay, so this is I think what would happen.
Let's say like three feet difference instead of like 6 foot difference.
Okay.
Just to make it like super clear, they're overlapping. So it's not like multiple boxes are stacking up side by side, but like there's already a box, and now there needs to be another box, but it's not in the exact same. If it's in the exact same position, they replace each other, or they just work with each other. But like the ones that are like slightly over, because they did make a point of it's in the exact same GPS coordinates.
Right. I think that it just appears, and just like as it appears, it like displaces the other box. It's gotta like, I don't know. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make, and none of it makes sense.
And so we know that we know that they just appear at some point, like the water one, So that means that there are some of these where there is a Velocity Labs and people work there, but they didn't build a box, and so they're busy doing lab stuff, and so there are things there, and I don't know, do they get like crushed or like do they explode? And for a fact that some of those situations there is a human being there that's like walking through that space when that box appears, and it's like once again, do they just like
Pink mist.
just like a bird through like a plane's turbine, just gone.
I mean, one thing that bothers me is, okay, they talk in the first episode that the way that the box works, it produces this electromagnetic field. Whatever it's doing produces this. How?
Right.
Where is it getting the energy when it goes to these other worlds to produce this energy to make the superposition happen? What is it? There is a lot of holes with this box. You can't think too hard about the box. What I'm annoyed about.
Yes.
First 3-ish episodes, they make Leighton as this like, I'm coming after you bad guy. We see him traverse the corridor. 2 episodes, we don't see anything.
He dead.
They're not gonna come back to that?
He dead.
Why? Why not show what he's going through? Like, instead of showing Jason 2 fucking up so much, why not just show me what Leighton 2's doing and how he's going through everything? Like, why even show us that?
I think it was like to show how hopeless the situation is. Like I don't know.
Leighton seems like a smart guy. He can figure out Jason 2's motives out of nowhere about Daniela. Like, they've probably never had a conversation about it, and he can just figure out the motivations of it. You're telling me that Jason 2 can't figure out how to travel the box with 50 ampules? Doesn't make sense.
I just don't know. This is pretty minor. The Aurora Borealis world where Jason 2 leaves Ryan seemed like it was unlikely that it was adjacent, because so the first thing that I thought was like, the Aurora Borealis, if it's been there for a period of time, it's beautiful. I can see that being something that people might want to live in that destination in order to see that. So that, I feel like that would change the composition of the world if the aurora borealis is visible in different areas, you know? Because that's not a small thing. That's something that affects everybody with eyes. So like I feel like that that would be such a big butterfly effect, because it's not just like one person seeing a butterfly in a different place, like it's everybody seeing that and having different conversations and meeting different people because they have different conversations. And so, and yes, I do think that there are ways for the aurora borealis to suddenly end up in an area where there isn't, you know, like maybe like a sun flare or something, like a flare from the sun or something like that, screwing with like our magnetic field, I think could cause that. So it could be something that
I mean,
where
we
it's like
just
the
had
world
one.
is mostly the same.
We just had one recently in Colorado where we never have it.
But I could be wrong. The skyline looked different, so it
No,
did
it did.
look like a different Chicago. So it like this isn't. This world seems so different that it's really hard to believe that it follows the rules of like it has to be adjacent. You have to have been able to be born here. If we can have this different of a Chicago, give me dinosaurs.
That's. I mean, we saw the one room where he opens up and there's like a creature out there. Like it's like a foggy thing, and it's like this giant, long. You know, it's walking on all fours, but the
Yeah.
it's tall, like lanky arms, and doesn't look like that could evolve alongside humans. So like, how was that world an adjacent world? And
Right. Like, what's the point of? Yeah. Yeah.
another thing Jason too said was judging, like where exactly in space and time that you would be. And okay, infinite worlds, I get it, but our whole solar system is moving. Like, so are we saying that like
Yeah.
it's all of the solar systems that are in the exact same trajectory, with the Earth going in the exact same trajectory, with all the planets
Right.
exactly the same? Like, there's a lot of holes, and not good ones.
Yeah. Okay. So not a nitpick, just random.
Okay.
The when Danielle is painting, I've never seen a clear canvas like that. I don't.
That
You
is
look
not.
like you're about.
Yeah, no, I actually had a big complaint about that because yeah, I think you can paint on glass, like I think that, or a clear surface, but do you know how much harder that makes your painting? Because if you are not painting in an all white room, which she was not, there's so many things behind your canvas. It literally no sense. Why is she painting on clear canvas?
Okay, that's a great point. That's not what I was thinking. I didn't even think about the fact. So that means like time of day, like where the sun is going to affect what light is coming through and how things look. I didn't even think about that part. So the one I was trying to see if anything like this existed, and I might have been in the wrong area. I was thinking plastic, so I was looking up like acetate canvas, plastic canvas, and I did see that plastic canvases existed, but they also generally still had that like fiber texture, because I think that paint doesn't cling easily to smooth surfaces. So you generally want a textured surface. And if you want to have like really fine control of what you're doing, you have really fine texture instead of like big textures.
Mm-hmm.
But you still generally want texture, is what I was seeing. And then also, you generally have a base down, which allows the colors you choose to pop. Which, once again, I guess if you are doing one of those clear things, that's not your. But like that does mean that either your painting, I think, would be different based off of where you put it, because there's different like paint behind it, different lighting in that room, or you just have to make it like extra thick to cover that, which means like why not do a traditional canvas that's it was weird to me. I didn't know if it was supposed to be like a metaphor of like a blank canvas, literally as blank as it gets, like to the point of being clear, but it was just weird.
Yeah, I wasn't too big a fan of that.
Yeah. It did vaguely remind me of in Severance. One of the characters is painting on a number of different canvases, and they are non-traditional canvases. Like one of them was,
Like a pegboard.
I think one of them was straight up, yeah, the pegboard. One of them was like straight up another already framed painting. But those made like they were like wood, which is, has like texture to it, so stuff can stick to it, or pegboard definitely has texture.
Yeah.
Those to me were interesting canvases, where I do feel like each one would have an impact, but not necessarily in a completely negative way of like, can you paint on it and it'll stay? And two, I really like what you pointed out of like, how does it look as you're trying to like paint based
Yeah.
off of like the light going, yeah.
Well, not even just the light, but like, okay, if I have this clear canvas and I'm trying to shade and color things and I want to make sure I hit every part, and there's like a brown dresser or like brown flooring behind me, like it's going to be very hard to make sure I get every single spot because
Yeah.
there's so much behind. I don't know. That is.
And what if you're trying to achieve the right color of brown, and you think you've achieved it, and you have like a thin coat, and some of that brown that you were talking about from behind is like showing through, and then you go to show it in a different gallery that has like yellow walls, and all of a sudden it's like, ugh,
Oh, it kind of looks like
that's
yellow.
not what I was like.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been a metaphor. It was a self-portrait, and I think it was a self-portrait. Like, it seemed like it was a picture of Daniela.
Yeah.
And so maybe she isn't clear on which Jason she's with. I don't know. It doesn't make too much sense for me. Or it would have been better if it was Jason that she painted on there, because then she could see right through him.
Right. Ooh.
But no, alas, those are not the reasons why she painted that, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the beginning of the episode.
Okay.
Right? You started off, I don't even remember what it started with. I have a note somewhere. But it's like it's going, and it just straight up feels like you are in the show at this point, It's not that it was leading up to like the ice cream thing. But it's a slow start going to the ice cream thing, because it's, them together in the house, and then the kid wants to go to the date. The date doesn't go well, but all this other stuff. The point being, all of a sudden, intro finally happens. Dawn and I both completely forgot that we weren't still in a cold open. It was so long. It was like over 10 minutes. And she pointed out first, I was thinking the exact same thing. She was like, whoa, that was a long cold open. And I kind of felt the exact same thing, where at that point, it was so long that while I didn't necessarily love the episode, I was invested. And the intro actually took me out, because like I'd completely forgotten we hadn't seen the intro at that point,
Right.
I was like, okay, things are going along, we're doing some stuff, things are happening, and then all of a sudden it happened. It was like, oh, cool, that was the cold open.
I did feel
that was long.
That was very jarring. It did take a while to get to that.
It was long as it was slow, and then while not equally long, the ending was long and slow. After Jason 2 drops off Ryan to rot in some rando world, it's a minute and a half building up to him concreting in that thing. And we see the work happen, and we see the stuff getting removed, and we see Jason looking at it, and we see... It was a minute and a half, mostly wordless, all kind of for that one punchline of, he did do it. The stakes have really been raised. It just feels like a very long punchline.
Yeah.
Because to me, it wasn't like an emotional moment where you sit in it and you have to feel the discomfort of those emotions. To me, that was a punchline. He'd already said that punchline in like the last episode, I think, or the episode before.
Yeah.
And it was like, it ended the scene strong, And now we like watch a minute and a half punchline. It felt a little bit like watching paint dry.
Yeah. it did feel like the last episode and this episode, they both had the same, like, he goes, he figures out the other Jason's trying to come back, and he's like, I'm gonna seal it up.
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And that, like, it ended on that, like, I'm gonna seal it up.
And
then
he uses it a couple more times. We see Leighton leave. And then he's like, now I'm really gonna do it.
But it's not even that punchline. It's like, let's watch somebody put concrete on a thing. Let's watch them take this concrete things away. Like, he has to meet with the person. The person has to start building the thing. The person has to start pouring the concrete. The person has to remove the stuff. And then Jason has to look at it from a couple of different angles. What about this angle? What about this angle? Oh, that's still a cube of concrete.
Also, it looked really weird how the concrete solidified. They had like 4 wooden boards around it, right? Like they made a box around the box. But then if you looked at the concrete was scored in like checkered ways, as well as the way, if you looked at the concrete, it was like the lines didn't quite line up. Like it was like the box had like a slab of concrete on each side. And so like there's like holes in the corners, right? Like the corners weren't filled in. Doesn't make sense. I think a better reveal for that could have been our Jason, because our Jason's gonna have to, if he's gonna get home, he's gonna have to come through there regardless with it being sealed off. So I think that it would be a better reveal if Jason gets to that world, he opens the door and it's cemented in, and then he's like, it doesn't quite make sense why the box would be covered in cement. He's like, this has to be my world. He knew I was coming, and he wanted to make sure I couldn't come back. Like, that could have been a way better reveal.
And they already set that. They already set that in motion. So I feel like you could see that and realize that both he's in the correct world, but also he can't actually get into it. Like, that would be a good punch.
Right.
At this point, it's not going to be a strong punch. So the beginning and the ending both were kind of slow.
Yeah, that's fair. I thought overall the episode was pretty slow. We didn't really get a lot of new information. Nothing really changed. Status, other than him sealing up the box, status quo hasn't really changed. They're still lost. Not even close to getting it,
Right. And
they killed Ryan.
They're the status quo because you could argue that while they're like simultaneously getting closer to the correct world, they also most likely don't have enough ampules to actually do it. So I feel like if there's any status change, it's the helplessness of so close but so far.
Right.
Where it's like we've gotten so close to worlds that are really like this, but it's extremely unlikely in these last 5 trips that we'll be able to find the right one. So it's like, at the same time, we're just too far from what we... And that's like more of a minor correction than it is like a real status change. It's more of just like raising the stakes a little bit of the clock is running out, and it doesn't seem like they're going to do it.
But also, it feels like a fictitious clock. Like the we only have 5 ampules or 5 trips left to do this. But like, we've already seen that now they've been able to hone in getting to the warehouse. Like a world that it's in the warehouse, it's not in Velocity Labs. Like we've seen them be able to hone that in. Why couldn't they hone in going into a Velocity Labs and just doing what Jason 2 did and grab some more ampules? Okay, well, we have 5 more tries left. Well, maybe we should spend these last 5 tries trying to secure more ampules.
Right. Yeah,
it's manufactured clock.
It's the whole genie thing, Your first wish, more wishes. Like, that's 100%. Like, one of the first, like, you're starting to figure this world out. Okay, one of the first things you need to do is get more ampules because you need more of them.
Right. Let's go to Ampule World.
Yes. And this world, this universe, doesn't have the no extra rules wish rule.
Right.
Like, that's one of the things that is like, kind of a rule of like genies. You can't wish for extra wishes. This world, we've clearly seen Jason 2 has wished for all of the wishes. He just keeps going back and he's like, I need like 50 more wishes.
Right. But there has to be a, and I don't know, I know we touched on this last episode about Jason 2 being able to really dial in the box, but like he had like a very few amount of ampules and he was able to go to exactly back to his world where Jason 1 escaped from, not like a variant of that world, not like an adjacent to that world that has ampules.
Right.
Literally the exact one. And he's been always able to get straight back to the perfect Daniela every time.
Every time.
Is there a little bit more to how the box is driven, or is he just that good at clearing his mind that he can focus exactly every time?
How does it clear other people's minds? Okay, like Layden at least seemed kind of like a little bit of a cool cucumber. He took the stuff pretty well in stride, and like he was excited, but he was like, okay, I gotta be calm. When Jason 2 tells Ryan 1 about it and brings him to it, Ryan 1 is like friggin' amped. His brain is like going at 1,000%. And Jason 2, oh, that's another one of my nitpicks. This is breaking one of the rules again. They made a rule, they broke the rule. Okay, so first part not related to that. So Ryan 1 is clearly super amped, right? His brain should be racing. Jason 2 just saying, like, hey, clear your mind, shouldn't actually work.
Yeah.
Like, he actually probably would need, like, minimum, like, 2 hours of, like, dude, just sit in the warehouse and chill.
Yeah, just erase all your thoughts.
And now let's go in. He was friggin' amped, right? But of course, Jason 2 can get him to whatever world Jason 2 wants because he's a superhuman. Whatever.
Yeah.
Here's the rule that was broken. Your first dose of this drug, it fucks you up. It knocks you out.
Well, it didn't for the first. It didn't do it to Layton either. And
Ryan takes it. We saw like a little bit of wonkiness with like Layton.
True.
Where it's like, oh, watch out! The first one is tough. And the subtext with Layton, although he didn't technically say it, was like, I do a lot of drugs. I'm good.
Yeah.
know?
Oh yeah.
Like that was the subtext with it. But then like, and he at least had like a little bit of wonkiness. Like he was like
right.
drunk or something. But like Ryan just like. We actually watch Ryan go in and experience the corridor open up versus everybody else like passes out in the box and wakes up with the corridors.
Right.
And somehow Ryan just like sees it. It's like, why make a rule if you're just going to ignore it?
Yeah.
And then just do what okay, that rule is slowing the story down. Let's move on. Let's pretend that people don't remember.
Right. It's bananas. Banana Republic. But with that, I feel like our journey has come to an end. Thank you so much for joining along with us. Come back next week. We're going to be doing Dark Matter Episode 7. So we look forward to seeing you then. I'm Mark. This is Sterling.
Thanks.